And now let me welcome on to the Mountain West Insider Podcast, a very special guest. We have Commissioner Gloria Nevarez, who is nice enough to join us. She's going to deal with Jeff Goodman here early here on a Thursday morning, which is not something that anybody should have to be submitted to. So, Gloria, it's great to see you. Appreciate you jumping back on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, let me ask you this. So, a conference commissioner here in March for a league that has a strong basketball pedigree. What are you doing right now? Are you out here advocating for a 5 bid Mountain West? Are you trying to tell everyone why Colorado State needs to get an at-large bid? Are you telling everyone how good Boise State's been of late? Is that why you're on the field of 68 with us?
All of the above. And, we meet regularly with the committee reps. We have our talking points. We share them with our coaches and our athletic directors, administrators. And so it is about just elevating awareness about what we have going on because, you don't want to wait until the results of the tournament are in. We always say it's easier to fall off the board than to advocate your way on. So we started this at the beginning before even any games were played.
All right, so we had Dan Gavitt on our show yesterday, who I love. I mean, Dan Gavitt's like the nicest human being in the world.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't love Dan Gavitt?
Exactly. Everybody loves. He's the one guy that can be in that position. Most people, if they're in that position, like you either love him or hate him, and a lot of people would not. But like Dan finds a way to get along with everybody.
I remember in football, one of the proposals was we need a Dan Gavitt of football. Actually used his name.
No, it's true. It's true. So we're talking about a variety of topics, one of which that's obviously the hot button topic is tournament expansion. I'm against it. I'm against it. There might be some way that I'm okay with it, but for the most part, I'm not for it because I just feel like, number one, the big boys just want more teams in. And that's not what I want. Like, if we're going to do it, I want to reward the mids and the lows and give them an opportunity to get in and see if they're better than the 14th place team in the SEC. But I like it the way it is. Tell me why I'm right or wrong in this and kind of where you stand.
So I was actually on that subcommittee that was part of the transformation committee that came out with this analysis about 20% of the field. Because at a high level, if you look at determining national champions, if you get 20% of the schools that actually sponsor the sport into the champ field, have you created a pathway so the best, most deserving team can possibly win the championship? And in some events, we actually had more than 20% of the sponsoring field. In others, we had far, far less than 20%. Basketball actually was deemed the one that was probably at the right spot, but the analysis should be global across the board. And so the media immediately grabbed onto, oh, we're going to expand the basketball tournament. And that really wasn't the original intent. The original intent is they asked the question, if you honor AQs from every league, do you have the best teams in the field able to win the championship? And so back to your question, I think basketball is good the way it is. I'm open to the conversation about expansion. Let's not, it ain't broke. Let's not break it. If we can be additive, let's be additive. But, there's a lot in basketball. You have to honor the conference championships. You have a long season. One could argue that the best teams are in the field, and is more access better? Perhaps, but not to the point of harming a really good championship.
Do you buy, Gloria? Do you buy that if, like I've said, I just think the bigger league commissioners just want more teams from their leagues at the end of the day and want more money. Are you concerned about that? Are you concerned that the Mountain West, the A10, the WCC, and obviously some of the one bid leagues as well get left out here, and this is all a power play for the biggest leagues?
Well, whatever the motivation is, let's put that aside. As long as I'm against multiple AQs in any format, and if there's an expansion and we all have a shot at those spots, let's go. Let's have it done on the floor, not in the meeting room beforehand with automatic AQ. So that's kind of where I line up, because are we going to get those spots? Maybe, sometimes. And when we do, it's amazing. And it's usually with a very, very deserving team that really performs well. So to me, as long as they're open. And then I'm open to the conversation as long as we don't completely reformat what is already a good thing.
If the tournament does expand, who am I invoicing for these or for this? Like if we go to Field of 76, I'm gonna have to buy a whole bunch of new stuff. Who do I send that to?
Marker, cross out the 8.
Um, we also talked with Dan kind of about like NIL and revenue sharing and how all of that stuff is coming in. How are you helping the programs in the Mountain West determine, not just what the revenue split's going to be, but how you prepare for this, how you deal with something that's coming in the pipeline that frankly is unforeseen in the world of college athletics?
Yeah, and honestly, our role at this point has been helping source information and vendors and try to figure out what others are doing. I don't know that we need to be a first mover in this space, but we can't be last and behind. So we have a sense of urgency, but there's so many unknowns. And not being a defendant to the lawsuit, we're not in the room where a lot of those decisions are being made about the House settlement. So it's about trying to get as much information as we can and try to get ahead of it. I mean, there was a declaration date just a couple days, weeks ago here in March, and all of our schools that could be are in. We have Air Force and they're different. And so, step one. Step two, okay, what does in mean? What counts? What doesn't count? What should the Mountain West position be? So we're still in the process of figuring all that out, but trying to get the best information we can as soon as we can has been our main role.
All right, so give me the latest on where you're at expansion wise. Obviously, there's been a lot of turnover in the league in the last year. I don't know how you do it. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know how you deal with this. Again, playing offense while you're playing defense, trying to figure this thing out. It's not easy. We talked to you about this at Mountain West Media Day before the season started. Give me kind of an update on again, where the league is with all this realignment and expansion.
Well, and you're right about all of it, but today we're in a really good spot because we're good. We have our membership, we're moving forward. We're taking a pause on expansion, so we're no longer shopping right now. Working on media rights because those are coming due in 26. Our current contracts expire. And what I really appreciate about our new members is the excitement they're bringing. I mean, they are already using the year or so before they join us to do all those things to make sure they're not coming in at bottom of the league. And that was a very important piece of our negotiation conversation, and they all are in it to compete, which is really exciting. I can't wait to what we're referring to as New Look Mount West.
I went back and forth with Leon Rice on this a couple episodes ago on the Mountain West Insider. I understand the value for your conference and getting your games on like big CBS or big Fox, right? But, and I'm just being selfish here, and I'm going to do stuff that's best in my best interest most of the time. There's nothing better for me than capping off a night of college basketball with, a 1 a.m. ending in the Mountain West after dark. How are we going to make sure that while you're also getting your brand on the biggest platform possible, which is important, that we don't ever go away from the thing that so many of us diehards love about your league, and that's the nonsense that happens late night on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays.
Which is interesting because someone told me the other day that the tagline, "The Mountain West always delivers," has been kind of coming up again and again because there's always something like an upset or a last minute shot type game. And to your point about time slots, that is our value in the media market. We're the Western region time zone. We can tip a little bit later. And again, you got to balance that with, you've talked to the coaches, student athlete welfare, academics, those things that are endemic to who we are and what we do, but really striking that balance to make sure that we have the best possible exposure and brand platform, but also taking care of our student athletes.
I'll give you one game a weekend. Okay. You get one game a weekend on big CBS or big Fox. Everything else is we got, because the one that sticks out to me this year more than anything else was it was Utah State and Boise State. And there was a comeback and there was a 4-point play where with like 2 seconds left that won the game for Utah State at home, where it bounced off the front of the rim and the backboard and rolled around like 4 different times before it went in. And that was the only game that people were watching, at least in my feed. And I might have been at 12:30, but everybody saw it happen. I'm just saying, there's a lot going on Saturday at 3 p.m.
I hear you. I hear you.
What's it been like for you watching the league this year? I know, again, you've so many other things going on. It's probably hard to lock into every game like you used to because there's just more to being a commissioner now than ever. But I think a lot of us were like, I don't know how the league's going to be this year. Obviously, we know what happens through the portal, and the Mountain West is one of those leagues that kind of gets rated by the high major leagues, and they can spend more money. That's just the way it is, right? I mean, you look at JT Toppin going to Texas Tech, and Richard Pitino has found a way, even losing a guy like that, of being really good this year. Again, Rob said we could be looking at a 5-bid Mountain West. I mean, how excited would you be to be able to get 5 in this year after what you did last year?
Well, remember last year, to your point, 6 teams in, that was historic and epic. And so there is kind of always a hangover that next year, like, oh, what are we, especially when you're kind of ending last season so high. So I'm really excited and thrilled. We've been just as competitive. And what you're saying about the transfer portal, certainly, and I don't want to minimize it, it has been disruptive. It is certainly difficult for our coaches to deal with, but it really hasn't changed who we are in the ecosystem. We've always found those diamonds in the rough, or got a guy here or there and coached them up into bigger and badder, and then others have sniffed around and lured them away, be it ads, coaches, student athletes.
True. Yeah.
We always find a way to come back and to repopulate. And because I think what we do is find and coach up, cultivate, teach athletics and higher education. It's who we are. And so certainly it's gotten more difficult, but what I love about this season is it's shown we keep coming back.
How do you work with your coaches on how to deal with the tampering problem in college basketball? I think one of the frustrating aspects for me about the way the current calendar is set up is that the portal opens during the tournament, right? Which is supposed to be this celebration of this wonderful thing that we have you build up for from June when everyone shows up on the campus, and then it becomes a national sensation for an entire month. And it feels like half of the media coverage during that event ends up being this guy entered the portal, this guy's transferring. And to get ahead of it, I mean, you know how it works with these coaches. They're going to be sending out feelers. They're going to have their guy talk to a guy that gets back to this player because they want to see if he can come out of the portal. And I think you can see it with some of these teams where when they go on these off runs down the stretch of the season, they're probably getting their head turned. They're hearing something from other people. How do you work with your coaches on how to avoid that problem?
Frankly, I grew up in this business in compliance. Decades, this has been the issue in college basketball and in football, but in college basketball. And we've yet get our arms around tampering, what other word for tampering, because there's a time-honored tradition among teams and coaches that they're not going to tell on each other. And then coupled with an enforcement mechanism that doesn't have subpoena power, that doesn't really, we're in a self-reporting environment, and we've just never been able to solve that, honestly. And your question was, how do I help our coaches deal? I mean, empathy, sympathy, it's a problem bigger than any one league, but certainly is getting way more amplified and harmful because of what's been happening in the transfer portal.
So you have some personalities, no doubt, in your league, men's basketball coaches, right? I mean, Richard Pitino might be the most sarcastic human being in all of college basketball. I don't think I've ever seen a personality like Sundance Wicks. Ever. Ever. The energy that dude has is insane. Like, it's really impressive to kind of watch and see how he's able to take that program, take it over, and get that energy to a point where, again, you have confidence that he's going to get it done in time. Like, have you ever been around? You've been around a lot of coaches in your lifetime here of doing this. Have you ever been around somebody like him?
No, the first time I met him, every new coach in the league, we jump on a Zoom, say, hey, kind of talk about the league. And you could feel it through the camera. Like, he was just emanating that energy and that belief. And you're like, he's going to get it done. I felt like I was in the huddle. I was hands in. And then when I met him in person, I was like even more magnified. And yeah, whatever that it is, he's got it.
Yeah, my first reaction when meeting him at Mountain West Media Day was I really hope that they don't have mountain Monster energy drinks anywhere in Laramie because this guy does not need to have anything else pumped into his system right now.
100%.
If you were to rank the coaches in this league that you enjoy their personality the most, why would Tim Miles be number 11 on that list?
No comment, not even going there. Nice try.
What else right now kind of fill people in of a typical March for you and what the priority list is and what you're juggling right now, Gloria? Because I do think people don't understand what the job is of a conference commissioner. And again, it's more than, first of all, football and basketball. And I kind of want you to weigh in that too, of the other sports and how concerned you are with the changing landscape that they are going to be affected.
Yeah, a lot in that question. So like right now, to your point, the advocacy, the awareness, trying to raise the storylines to the world about what's going on in our basketball league. So folks are tracking as we go into our tournament. We are also hosting an NCAA regional in Denver. So our staff is working not only on our tournament, but hosting that. But then, as you know, towards the end of the season, as things get hotter, there's just a lot more issues. Questions about officiating, questions about what, where our games are, what time, all that daily. But also, what a lot of people don't realize, this is a traffic jam of other championships and sports for us. So I just came back from indoor track and field. We had swimming. We're going to be hitting our spring champs with golf, tennis, like a lot is happening behind the scenes operationally just to hold events. And so we're working on all of that. It is probably the most busy time of year for conference staff.
How so? How are those other sports, the Olympic sports? How do you think they're going to be affected by what is coming with with the changes that potentially are going to affect college sports?
I certainly share everyone's concern about how resources are going to be used, given all the needs from the House settlement. But it's what I love about college athletics is broad-based athletic programs. I think our schools take a lot of pride in offering and competing in a lot of the other non-football and basketball sports. And so, so far I've sensed a strong commitment to not losing or dialing back a lot of those sports, but certainly I think over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see attention.
Gloria, how do we get rid of all of these monitor reviews in the last 2 minutes of college basketball games? How do we make it so that the last 2 minutes doesn't take 45 minutes? How do we fix if I see this one more time in a college basketball game, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah, and remember before we had this, it was dribble, dribble, shoot, bucket, raw, court rush, game over, and everyone's what? Did we get it right? So it's do we get it right? Or do we have that celebratory moment? And so I think a lot more coaches and athletes want to get it right, although it does put a big damper on that moment at the end of the game. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of the school of get it right.
Yeah, I am too. I am too. Obviously, you want to get it right, but I think sometimes it's overkill, right? Sometimes it's a little bit overkill. You mentioned the refs earlier, and I asked Gavitt this as well. Is what do we do here? What do we do? You see it. These officials, some of them are coming out to your league, maybe doing a game in Albuquerque. Then the next day you see them on a national TV game out in Boston or New York or something like that, like 10 hours later. I've said they need some sort of universal assigner. And it's gotten better because you've got these consortiums that you guys are part of one. And it's definitely gotten better than it was 5 years ago. But why can't we get one person, one organization, so that these officials aren't crisscrossing the country when realistically you can keep them in a geographical region at least for 3-4 games, and then you want to give them a day off? You give them a travel day off.
Yeah, no. And the historic tension behind that has been independent contractors. And so I agree with you. The only way to solve that is have central officiating in all sports. And I'm optimistic because we have a problem in officiating across all sports. Folks aren't getting into the profession of officiating. largely because of all the negativity that comes along with it. And so I was really encouraged to see NCAA President Charlie Baker put officiating in his top priorities among all the other craziness that he has to deal with. He's recognized that this is a place that needs examination, time, energy, problem solving.
Well, Gloria Goodman, I don't know if you have anything else, but I think I'll just end it with this. If we can, what do we need to do? What do you need from us to be able to make sure that we get a 5-bid Mountain West here? What? Give me some talking points. Give me some things you want me to push out because I'm here for it, man. I love the Mountain West.
Yep, I think you guys have got all the talking points, but just repeating that message, like don't sleep on the Mountain West just because you might not have stayed up to see some games like you folks. Like there's some really talented teams that deserve to get in, deserve consideration.
I think people know that now. I do. I think the last few years, if it's taught anybody anything, it's the depth of the Mountain West, especially that top half. It is so strong, and you've got coaches that people now, again, Dutch, how far they've gone in the NCAA tournament. Richard Pitino, certainly Nico Medved. I mean, Utah State. I feel like in a way, Gloria, eventually you could coach them and they'll get to the NCAA tournament. Like no matter what, Utah State just goes to the tournament every single year. I mean, I'm not going to say Doster could coach them to the tournament, but I think you could.
All I'm saying is I just won a 9U championship here in New Jersey. So,
well, and then, our tournament is always so exciting. I've been to a lot of sold out, exciting basketball tournaments in my career, but Mountain West, honestly, the fans, they bring it hard. They are on their feet. They're signage, face paint. It's exciting. And anything could happen. We lucked out last year, I think. It all broke the way it should in order to get the most teams in, but anything could happen.
Well, listen, Gloria, we appreciate you jumping on the Mountain West Insider podcast with us. We appreciate working with the Mountain West. And remember, Mountain West After Dark, that's what everybody loves.